So you actually work as a scribe, and which is somewhat unusual to be a woman who's working as a scribe, but it's becoming more common these days, isn't it?
It is becoming more common, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have records of there being historical sophrot, so female scribes that did ritual items like Torah scrolls and tefillin.
I didn't know
and
about that.
mezuzot.
Tell me that. What I did know about is there were female scribes who wrote regular manuscripts. Like there's a famous one from, I believe she's from France or something, called Paula HaSoferet, Paula the Scribe.
Oh, right, yeah.
I did a course at Oxford, and they brought out this manuscript, and it was like a commentary on the Talmud, like some really obscure text. Like
I've seen that really intense writing.
Well,
it's
I mean,
very
it's a text that the
consistent.
average male Jew would not understand.
No,
because it's a very complicated subject matter.
Yeah.
And there's no way you can write something, copy something like that unless you understand it. And her father was a scribe, and he trained her.
That's
and she
how,
wrote it.
yeah, that's how a lot of historical sofrot became sofrot. I mean,
and Sofrim, right? Their father.
Well,
trained
yes,
them,
exactly.
Right?
Well, I mean, one good example is in Yemen. There was a whole family of scribes, the Banyahu family.
Okay, I know them.
And right.
I mean, I know the manuscripts written by the Banyahu
Right,
family.
exactly. So I mean, and it was a family, and they'd been scribes for multiple generations. And there was a daughter named Miriam, and she was also taught to be a Soferet, just like her brothers were taught to be Sofrim. You know,
Okay.
and
Wow.
she wrote colophons, and she wrote codices, but according to a couple of the bookbinders and artists and scribes and people that I know in Jerusalem, she has a Torah scroll that is in the Israel National Library.
Really?
Yeah, and she lived in the 1500s.
Wait a minute, you're telling me there's a Torah scroll written by Miriam of the Banyahu family, a woman scribe, that was used in Yemen in the National Library of Israel? Wait, so if there's no colophon, how do they know she wrote it? From the handwriting, or?
That was referenced in Evan Sapir, which was a book written by, there was a rabbi, it was an Ashkenazi rabbi that decided he was going to leave Jerusalem and go collect money all over the world, all over the Jewish world for the poor of Jerusalem. And he ended up in Yemen, and he wrote this whole book. And it's a really interesting book. You should read it. I mean, it's in English as well. So he referenced it there. And there was also multiple, like I said, I know people who've seen it, but I haven't seen it myself.
So he mentions in this book that he's around at the time of Miriam the scribe, and is that what it is?
No, that was later on. No, he was later on. I can't. Okay. I'm really sorry. I can't off the top of my head. I can't remember the name of the rabbi, but it was 1500s.
Okay. Well, and this is very common that there were these emissaries that would go out from Jerusalem, and they would collect money on behalf of the Jews of Israel.
I think that's really brave. And also at the time, you'd literally be walking or traveling around with loads of cash on you. Like, how is that safe?
Well, I mean,
when you consider
traveling without the cash wasn't safe.
No,
I mean,
traveling wasn't safe.
Traveling was so unsafe that there's a traditional Jewish prayer, Tfilat HaDerech, the prayer of the traveling. And I remember when I was a kid, I was raised Orthodox, and we would recite this when we would drive down to the Indiana Dunes. And my father would say, okay, we've got to recite Tfilat HaDerech, the prayer for traveling. And I'm like, what, armed robbers and bandits? And what is this about? What do we need to do this? But you know what? There's a lot of places in the world today that aren't that safe to travel. And boy, back then, any kind of travel was you were taking your life in your hands.
You really were.
So,
you might not come home again.
So this guy, he comes from Jerusalem, and he arrives in Yemen, and he finds out there's a Torah scroll written by Miriam the scribe. And you're saying it's in the national. I've got to hunt this down now and find out what is this Torah scroll.
Good, because if I've got any incorrect information from any of my sources, then obviously that would need to be corrected.
Yeah,
but this is exciting to me. But she's not even the first one, because there was. I mean, there's been female scribes all over the place. I mean, there was. There's a long list of them. A lot of Italian female scribes, mostly writing Megillat Esther, as far as we know, and decorating them, of course, because it's Italy, so you have to decorate things. And
you're allowed to decorate a scroll of Esther, but you're not allowed to decorate a Torah scroll.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
Unless you call like the Sefer Tagim that we talked about decoration, but not.
That's not the same as decoration. I'm talking about like illustration and like putting.
Oh, like actual drawings, yeah.
Yeah, drawings or even.
And is that kosher to read from in a synagogue if it has those drawings?
Oh yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, no, a lot of Megillot Esther are. It depends on how much money the future owner wants to spend on it, basically.
Okay.
They're absolutely kosher to read from. You can Yotzei, the entire community, the whole community is included. Whoever hears it read will be included in the mitzvah, in the commandment. They would have completed their mitzvah.
So have you done Esther scrolls where they were decorated as well?
Yes, I've done multiple ones of those. I mean, probably the most elaborate one I've ever done. I mean, I did one actually just a few years ago for Rabbi Lindsay Taylor Goodhartz, Dr. Lindsay Taylor Goodhartz, who also went through the Maharat program. So she's essentially an Orthodox rabbi as well.
I don't know what that is.
Maharat program?
What's that?
Oh, it's essentially an Orthodox rabbinical program for women.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're talking about female scribes, and you said there are other examples from history.
Right. Yeah, and there was a prince in Tawuk or Dakuk, which is in Persia.
Okay.
And he was always referred to as Ben HaSoferet.
The son of the female scribe.
Right. And so his lineage, so nothing about his dad. Like they weren't saying anything about his dad. They were just referring to that. But and there was some. Wow. Rebbitzin Dulcie of Worms, who was the wife of the Rokeach of Rav Eliezer of Worms, and during the
early 13th century
Crusader times, because unfortunately she and two of her daughters were murdered by Crusaders.
Okay.
She used to sew the Yuriot of the Sifrei Torah together.
Okay, the sheets.
She would sew them together. Yeah.
That's
so I don't know if she did anything else, but I mean, that's just an example of. There are places where there's many different places where it'll say, oh, don't let a woman write this, or don't let a woman sew that, and if she has, then maybe unpick it and resew it. But maybe, and then another opinion will say maybe not. It'll say something else. I mean, I'm being very like.
So this is really interesting. She sewed together the sheets of the Torah scroll, so you know what it implies, that she was literate. Because how would you know which sheet to sew to which other sheet unless you read what it said?
I suppose, in theory, I suppose her husband could have said, oh, can you sew this one to that one? You could make that argument.
Yeah, it's possible, but
when you consider what a big rabbi he was, and the fact that his rulings and his influenced basically all of Ashkenazi Jewry even to today, he's a very important rabbi. So I mean, his wife was doing that.
He's one of the key figures of really medieval mysticism. He wrote a series of books. One of the more famous ones is what is it called? Sodei Razaya, and that's actually a collection of a bunch of works. Basically the secrets of the mysteries or something like that is the translation. Yeah, so he is one of the key authors of medieval mysticism, and all kinds of other works. And that's interesting. I didn't know. So his wife sewed Torah scrolls together, the pieces of the scroll. One of the things about the Torah scrolls, there aren't catchwords. So in a colophon, in a codex, you'll have a quire, which is basically like a little notebook.
Right. Yeah.
And there'll be the first word of the next quire.
Yes.
So all you have to be able to do is read that word and not all of the context to figure out what goes with what. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Torah scrolls, with the exception of the Bologna scroll, we don't have catchwords. Yeah. And so if you want to know which goes to which, you'll have to read this verse. All right. Oh yeah, this lines up here. Right.
Yeah. And you've got your tikun obviously to show you what goes with what.
So you think she could have been checking a tikun? I suppose it's possible.
It's possible.
Or other Torah scrolls?
That was pre-printing press, obviously. So it's more likely back then that people were copying from other Torah scrolls.
No, but they had tikuns. We have a tikun from.
But they would have had to have been handwritten.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we have a tikun from what is it? I believe it's in Hamburg, and it is the exact layout of several Torah scrolls we have that are today in Berlin.
Yeah.
And it's almost certain that either they were copied. Well, it is certain that they were either copied from that tikkun or they were both copied from a common source. That's always the question, right?
Right. Yeah.
In whenever you have A and B, was A copied from B? Was B copied from A? Or were they both copied from C?
Right.
Right. That's always the question. But there's no question that this tikun matches at least two Torah scrolls in the layout. In the layout, meaning of how each column begins. So
that's really interesting. I did not know that.
So we
have. And that's your field. It's not mine.
So we have tikunei sofrim that are handwritten.